Well, there we go. We're live streaming yet again on another show of Hog Out. Now, we've got another guest coming on later on in about 5-10 minutes, but we're going to quickly talk about Australia beating New Zealand again. I know it's not the ultimate 100th test for Tim Southey down there, but New Zealand played really well, pushing Australia right to the wire, but weren't good enough, and that puts Australia on the second place on the World Test Championship. And looking at the fixtures ahead, I don't think it's anyone else is going to beat Australia and India to the final in a couple of years' time. Also, we're going to revisit India versus England, and then we're going to go straight to the special guest where we might talk about IPL as well. Let's roll bumper. Okay. Right, we'll just quickly finish or just go over Australia versus New Zealand down there, just below Australia, where it's really cold down the bottom part of the world. But Australia were just too good at the final stages. Mitchell Marsh continuing his fine form, his resurgence in Test cricket. It's been a wonderful story, getting a well-compiled 80, putting the pressure on the New Zealand bowlers. But the big one is Alex Carey. I felt that Alex Carey was just about going to have to move on out of the Test arena, and Inglis from West Australia was going to come in and take his spot. But a 98 not out in a big run chase when Australia were under pressure in the final innings was the perfect foundation for Alex Carey to rejuvenate and regrow that Test career that he started off so well with. Now, just remember, over in the Ashes this year, he fell apart after that run out with Bairstow. He hasn't been the Alex Carey of old. He's had his troubles, but this could be a defining innings. Well battered to Alex Carey, and I still think there could be an opportunity for him to captain Australia down there. And I'd just like to have special mention of Matt Henry from New Zealand. What a wonderful bowling performance throughout the whole Test series. He was probably the man of the series with the ball. He was sensational. And there's another young guy, Sears. I am liking what I see there. I reckon he could play a big part for New Zealand at Test level, but he's going to have a good T20 career. I could just see him swinging that new ball and being a prominent death bowler as well. He's got some height, he's got some bounce, and he's also got a bit of pace. This kid is the bee's knees moving forward. Now, we'll quickly go over there to England versus India. England were disappointing in this Test series. There is no doubt about it. They went over to the UAE for a bit of a holiday halfway through the series. I don't think that's good enough. You've got to stay in that country, find a destination in that country where you can get part of the culture and stay on the same time zone. Keep focused in the area that you're in. I just thought just going on that holiday just broke the momentum for them. But if we look out the whole series, the England batsmen, their dismissals were disappointing. I've just got some stats here. India, within all their dismissals throughout the series, there are only 12 batsmen that got bowled. 12 dismissals of bowled. For England, it was 27 throughout the whole Test series. And then we look at the LBWs. India were only LBW 12 times, England 24 times. So that means that England weren't picking up the line of the ball, the length of the ball, weren't able to utilise and play with the spin, use good predominant footwork. They were found out. Ashwin, Kuldeep Yadav and Jadeja were just too good for the English batsmen. And then we look at the England bowlers, or if you look at the England bowlers compared to the Indian bowlers, strike rates were blown out of the sky. Most of the Indian bowlers had strike rates of under 40. All the England bowlers had strike rates of over 58. That's not good enough if you're going to win a Test series. and it was just too much inexperience there. And one thing I'd like to shout out there is that England had the inexperience in the bowling department, but India had a bit of inexperience in the batting department. But India were able to back those youngsters, give them a role, and help them along the way. They guided them. They gave them good, strong belief. Whereas if you look at the England side, they lost belief throughout the series. There was too much talk about, is this Bazball working or not? Well, the Bazball, it's exciting brand of cricket. They're winning a lot of test matches playing this brand of cricket. It's rejuvenated the game, but it's not making a difference in the percentages of wins to losses. If you look at the history of England, they've had a couple of years where they've been in dominant phases, and then other years where they have been absolutely blown out of the ballpark by opposition teams. It's the same with the Bazball. It's a different brand of cricket, but it's the same story. But if you look at the way that their batsmen approached the game, they were found wanting. They were tentative. They weren't believing in themselves. They weren't believing in their game plan. There was too much noise from outside that was interfering with their mindset out in the middle. So any youngster out there that is looking for any career that they want to achieve, you've got to believe in yourself. There's going to be a lot of talk around you trying to put you off your game. Someone else is going to come in and try and take your position. You've got to put it out of your mind and concentrate on what you can control. So England could not control the controllables. India controlled the controllables. England, disappointingly, aren't going to be close to another World Test Championship final this year. As I said earlier on, it's going to be India, Australia in the World Test Championship final at the end of the year. And hopefully this is not going to be a continuation over the next decade, because we want the other teams fighting off and challenging both Australia and India in Test match cricket for its survival. Now, let's get me off the screen right now as a solo. I want to bring on a special guest. Ashnish, where are you? Ashnish, pop in there.
Hi.
Ashnish, how are you, mate?
Yeah, good, Brad. How are you?
I'm going very well. Now, you're living in Melbourne.
Yes, I am.
And you came over from Punjab.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I was born and raised in Chandigarh.
Chandigarh. When did you, or where did you finish your schooling?
So I finished my schooling in 2004. Then I did engineering in Chandigarh before moving to Sydney in 2009.
So you moved to Australia in 2009?
That's correct.
Right. So you would have hated my guts up until about 2011.
Well, up until you retired from international cricket.
Yeah. Do you go for Australia?
One day is. Look, my love for Indian cricket, because you got to look at my rising up. So when I was growing up, what Indian cricket meant to me, what someone like a Sachin Tendulkar meant to me. So I can't take that out of myself. That's ingrained in my blood. So there's a few stories when I was growing up. I can share those if you like. But
go for it.
Yep. So in that 1996 World Cup, I was a 12-year-old at the time. So very impressionable mind, and here comes this tiny little guy by the name of Sachin Tendulkar, who's smashing everybody around the park. And then as I'm about, sorry, I was 10 years old at the time. And then when I was 12 years old, it's the year 1998, the famous year when the great man had one of his best years of his career. So I can never take that out of me. Eh? Like, I'd be riding. My school was about 6 kilometers from where I lived, from my house. So I'd be riding back, and there was this, if I'm not wrong, 1998 Coca-Cola Cup, India, Zimbabwe, and Australia. Yeah, yep. And India and Australia were playing, and I leave the school, had a quick look at a TV on one of the shops. India's batting, 100 miles an hour, riding my bike back home. Then my friend's home was about midway, about 3 kilometers from school. So I stopped there, watched the game, and here's Sachin. He smashed Tom Moody for like 2 or 3 sixes in a span of a couple of overs. And I'm like, stuff there, so I'm not going home. So I just stayed there, yeah. And no phones at the time, so parents were worried, where's our kid gone? Until I reached home about 3 hours later. So that's the sort of bringing ahead, with cricket. And there's this, again, 1998, India, Sri Lanka, and Zimbabwe again playing a tri-series in Sharjah. And India and Sri Lanka. And Sri Lanka used to be a bloody good team at the time, yeah, just coming off of the World Cup win in '96.
Yep.
And it's really late at night, about midnight, and I have to go to school next day. And parents are like 10 o'clock, nope, you're going to the bed. So I can't sleep, yeah. So everyone's sleeping. I take my blanket with me, turn the TV on, and have my blanket like this so that the light from the TV doesn't go to any of the other rooms. And India were losing the game, and then Robin Singh and Ajit Agarkar, I think, smashed like a 12 ball 26 or something. And I'm watching there, I'm sort of jumping, and all of a sudden I get a smack at the back of my head. So in my excitement, I forgot that I was making a bit of noise, and my father woke up. So that's how I grew up watching cricket. Okay, so I'll always support Indian cricket, but Australia is my new home, and Australia, I always support Australia when it doesn't involve India.
Right.
And I think if my son ends up playing for Australia one day, I think they'll change. So there we go.
Well, that would be good. Hey, when Australia were playing India over here just recently, I think it was a couple of series ago, when India drew in Sydney, then beat
in Gabba.
Australia up in Queensland. Did you go to that Sydney Test match?
No, I did not. In fact, I have not gone to a Test match for about 5 years now. And that's just through COVID, and after that, like, I've got a couple of kids now, so it's hard enough to watch a game on TV, like convince my family to let me do that. If I sneaked out to watch a game of cricket, I can't take my kids with me because they'll be an absolute nuisance there. But if I do that, mate, I'll have to get the divorce papers ready, like,
Oh, well, that happens. Now, just for the Indian people that watch the show, there's a lot of Indian people that come over and live in Australia. They come over and study. Just down in my local park here, there's a group every Sunday afternoon. There's a mixture of Sri Lankans, Pakistan people, and Indians all joined together playing local park cricket, the tennis ball cricket. What was the hardest thing for you coming to Australia and living? The biggest adjustment.
I'll be honest with you. I did not find it very hard. Like, the hardest thing was that, back in India, we are pampered. We are absolutely pampered. Here, like, my brother was already living here when I came here, so I didn't have to go find a spot to live or anything. He looked after me for first few years of my life here. Yeah. Still does, but in that sense, like, I wasn't missing family because I had my family here. Like, my parents were there, but they were traveling to Australia even before I arrived here. So, my niece, my nephew, so everyone's here. So I don't miss family as such. But I suppose what was difficult was that here, in a way, you have to look after yourself. You can't rely on your parents. Like, back in India, I never cooked. Never ever cooked. Yep. Here, yes, again, I didn't cook, but once I moved out, I went to country Australia, and I'm a vegetarian, right? So I can't just go to the local pub, and there's only so much risotto you can eat, right? And there's nothing else for me, yeah. They've been looking. There's a little place called Colliempley in New South Wales. I went there for a lunch to a pub, like, I happened to be there for work, and I go to the local pub and I said, look, I am a vegetarian, and they go, okay, so you can eat chicken or lamb? I'm like, no. I said, but lamb only eats grass. I said, well, then lamb's vegetarian. But if I eat lamb, I'm not vegetarian. So, like, that was a hard bit to explain, especially living in country. But I loved every minute of it, though.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in the country, so it was always meat with a little bit of veg on the side. So it would have been tough because most of the vegetarian that you would have got there would have been a bit of lettuce, probably, on a side salad.
Yep. And there've been times I've just joking. Like, I got along so well with the people, especially. I lived in Deniliquin, for a year and a half, and that's where the great Adam Gilchrist spent a few years of his life as well. Yeah, I think his dad, if I'm not wrong, was working at one of the schools there.
Yep.
And even the local pub there's a local place called the Globe, and they've got a frame with Gilly's 1999's team jumper signed by Gilly and all. So I didn't miss cricket at all anywhere I went in Australia, which was the great thing. But yeah, like country, country was country.
So what Indians see of the cricket players on the TV, we're not that bad over here, are we?
Nah.
We're not that aggressive.
No. No. It's the saying that what happens on the field, you leave it at on the field. I've actually seen that.
Yep.
I've seen that. I've played a bit of great cricket here as well, and I've actually seen that, lived that. So when I moved to Melbourne, I played for a club called Carnegie. Even in country, I spent about 6 months in Leeds, and I started playing for a local club there, and in fact, it's funny how I got my first job. The graduate job. That was because one of my professors at uni, he was a cricket nut as well. His name was Tim Norris, and he interviewed me. And literally 2 minutes into the interview, we started talking cricket. I don't know how we ended up talking cricket, but for about 20 minutes out of the 30 minutes of interview, we spoke about cricket, right?
Yep.
And next thing I know, I got hired. So I got sent to Leiden. I did my graduate role there. Tim set me up with the local club he used to play when he was at Leiden. I applied for them, and then I moved to Deniliquin. But I did not join a club in Denny. I used to travel back to Leiden to play with those guys. It was about 2-hour drive, right? So every Saturday I'd go and play with them. But because that was like, once you're in a team, you're in a team. Yeah, you just don't go, oh yeah. And then when I moved to Melbourne, I played for a club called Carnegie South Cricket Club. Absolute great bunch of people. Yeah, like I loved I obviously played second grade, not a very good cricketer at all by any stretch of imagination, but I loved my cricket like most Indians. Yeah. So I joined the club. I played there. Great bunch of guys. Unfortunately, I'm living too far away from there. I can't be part of that club anymore. And I've not really played a lot. I played one season a couple of years ago at a local club, but I haven't really played much. But yeah, all those experiences, I can tell Australians, they might look pretty menacing on the field, but that's pretty much that's where it ends.
Yep. Well, that's fantastic. It gives everyone a perspective that's going to watch this down the line. Anyway, let's get straight into it. What are the questions that you have for me on the cricket world right now?
Yep. Look, if you don't mind, we'll start with Test cricket. I'm a bit of a purist. So Test cricket, there's a lot of talk going on around Test cricket. I personally sometimes get worried about the future of Test cricket. Where do you see Test cricket in 5 to 10 years' time? What do you see are real big threats? Like, there are people who love Test cricket right now. There will be people who love Test cricket in 10 years' time, but that the population does not decline. What do we need to do to fix this situation?
I think it comes with the pay gap, actually, because you just look at Australia playing New Zealand down in Kiwi land, and Australia are just too good for New Zealand. New Zealand got some great players. They fight really hard. But, to promote the game down there, you've got to have a livelihood where it's compatible to all the other cricketers around the world. It's the same with the West Indies, same with Sri Lanka, Pakistan. Pakistan players sometimes don't even get paid for 6 months. England players are probably getting paid better than anyone else. Indian players are getting paid really well. But I think it's that pay gap for a start. That's number one. But number two, it's also the depth of population. So New Zealand and the West Indies don't have the population of many of the other nations around there. So participation rates aren't the same as what you got in the other major countries. But so that's a huge worry for those two particular nations. And for me, I want West Indies cricket to really grow back to where it was when I was growing up in the 70s, because they were athletic. You had 4 fast bowlers really pressurising the opposition batsman. I didn't play cricket because Australia were winning. I played because Australia were getting thumped by the West Indies, and I wanted to help them out. So that was my first instance of it, and just their athleticism, the way they played the game differently to everyone else, was exciting. So that's one aspect. I'm looking at Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka don't get exposed to big cricket or don't play as many test matches as what India, Australia and England do. And Sri Lanka's got a reasonable population as well. They've got a good love for the game. But just because they don't get exposed to it, that's a worry for me. Pakistan not playing India, that's another big one for me. Politics has got in the way there. I understand all that. But if you have a Pakistan-India series going along with an England-Australia series, so you've got the Ashes series and India and Pakistan, the excitement around the world of cricket at that stage would be massive, huge, because they're the most 2 popular series that you could probably ever have. So for me, that's where Test cricket is a worry for me. Getting Pakistan, India to play against each other, and the pay gap are the 2 big ones. Because as a fast bowler, why would I go and put my body through the rigmarole of bowling potentially 30 overs in a day over a 5-day period? So, potentially 2 days of 30 overs in a test match, when I can virtually get paid the same playing T20 cricket where I only have to bowl 4 overs. So that's the other threat as well. Fast bowling's the biggest issue for me at test level.
Yep.
Getting fast bowlers wanting to play test cricket for a long period of time. I think that's where the game can really fall away on an entertainment value. So they're the biggest issues for me. I worry about Test cricket, and I'm always going to worry about Test cricket. But I think there's a lot of love there still, that people actually want to play for their country when they first start out, and they get to a certain stage. I might not be able to play Test cricket. I better concentrate on the T20 cricket. We just want to make that little component where they think they've lost the ability to play Test cricket. We want them to go for another couple of years to pursue an opportunity to play Test cricket, if you understand what I mean. So that's probably the threats for Test cricket for me. Yeah.
Yep. So I'm not sure if you're across the news coming from India just a few days ago. They have bridged, or to an extent, the gap between people who played, say, the leagues and people who purely play Test cricket. So there is an incentive scheme where the players who play Test cricket only, or any player, regardless of whether you play all the other formats or not. But if you play Test cricket for India, you're going to get close to like $80,000 a game or $100,000 a game in Australian dollar, which I think is a fantastic thing, because now you have
$80,000 a game.
Yeah.
That's a lot more than what. That's a fair.
If I'm not wrong.
But I think that's a good thing. You get paid per game. And that's a huge incentive. That's a good point. So that's something that the ICC can look at as well for the West Indian players and Sri Lankan players. You get paid a little bit extra for playing Test cricket, and where we get that money out of the coffers, I don't know where it's going to come from. But either we get special sponsors that are dealing in that market over there, oil and gas, to help out, or whether we fund it from our other cricket associations. And I think that's a great incentive. You can't have the likes of Iyer, who's pulled out because of back spasms, going to go and train with KKR, who actually controls the player. You've got a BCCI centralised contract, but you've also got a contract with KKR, but you're going to go and train with KKR while your services should be with your cricket board at that stage. So you should be out the NCA, I think it is over there, where they put you through your paces for rehabilitation. So, I think the incentive scheme there is get more pay per game at test level, and that will keep players wanting to play test match.
Yeah.
Good point.
Really the way to bring sponsors into any sport is if you can bring crowd to the games.
Yeah.
And I personally think that the ICC and the big three or big four, they need to think about how we are going to bring people to watch test matches outside of India as well. Because in India, people come, And what are you, keeping that in mind, what are your thoughts on this current scheduling? Would it help if we had 4-day tests starting on a Thursday and ideally looking at, say, a day-night test? So you start sort of late in the afternoon on a Thursday, you finish on a Sunday night. So you can have people at least on Friday, Saturday, Sunday come in with their kids to watch test cricket when it's not scorching hot. And the reason I say that is, I'm a purist. I don't like tinkering with test cricket at all. But if you look at the stats, I was reading up something a couple of weeks ago. From the 1980s to now, your win percentage has gone up from like 60% all the way up to 85% last year and 100% this year. Small sample set, but 100% this year so far. But at the same time, the number of overs in a test match, in a completed test match, on an average, is only sitting at, it has for the first time come down below 300. So you're not even really using the 5 days per se. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You look at say the last few years, there's not a lot of games that are going into the 5th day as such. So I just want
to So if you play 4 days, 90 overs in the day, that's 320 overs.
360.
360. Thank you very much for that. Maths was my strong point too. For some reason, I had eight times 4 in there, and I wrote down 90 times 4. You idiot, Brad. You see. That's live TV. You can make blunders there. But that's 360 overs. I totally agree with you with that. 4-day test matches, I think they should be played. And if you're playing 4-day test matches, there's no reason why you can't push that out to 100 overs in a day.
Exactly right, yeah.
Yeah, so that makes the game move on a little bit quicker. But also the incentive to win the games now, you've got to be batting in more of a hurry, a bit like England. So you're bringing in a bit of the shorter format skills, but you still got the longer format endurance aspect of there, where you're working over batsmen and you can take your time. I think a lot of the Shield games that we're playing now, that 4-day stuff, we're always getting results because you're having generous declarations or teams are playing more aggressive cricket. So I think there's got to be an incentive there. I totally agree with you. 4-day test matches are ideal. I don't know whether an Ashes test series with 4 days would be ideal. I think you could still play the Ashes with 5 days and even India with 5 days, because I think India, Australia especially, I still think there's value with a 5-day test match there because both teams are evenly matched. But when you're playing against the likes of Sri Lanka or the less playing nations, which are really struggling in this particular arena, I think you can drop down to 4-day test matches. I think that's ideal. I think even with the test match arena, you've got the World Test Championship every 3 years, final every 3 years or 2 years. It doesn't really matter. But I think we could, I think we could put it into sections. So you've got 3 sections. So you've got the top 4. So they play in a series over a 2-year period, home and away. But the top 2 play off on the World Test Championship final. The bottom 2 play against the top 2 of the next division during that final series, where they play 3 home tests and 3 away. to either stay up in A division or get relegated. And it's the same with the bottom two teams in Section 2 against Section C champions. And down the bottom there, the Section C bottom two play against the best associates that want to play Test cricket, trying to get up as well. So you're still bringing it there. So that's another way that we can change the scheduling for Test cricket for me. And then those teams that are struggling at Test level, if they have a resurgence of some really good cricketers in a period, all of a sudden they've got a chance of going up the ranks and winning the World Test Championship. So they're going back to basics, but they're playing in a series where it's more competitive, where it's close, rather than playing India versus Sri Lanka, where the chances of it being a close Test series are very slim. So I think that's something that the ICC can work out as well. Look out, because we've got to keep Test cricket surviving. I think the other thing is too, I'd like to see the characters of the game allowed to express themselves out in the middle. And I think you go back to Merv Hughes, you go back to Dennis Lilly, Alan Border had a bit of characteristic with him himself as well. You had more characters back in the day. I think that's something as well. We're in the entertainment game. Yes, you want to win, but still you're in the entertainment game. You've got fans that are coming. You've got to engage with those fans in a number of ways. It's just not about, oh, that's a good shot. It's about how do we interact with the fans? What are we giving the fans? What bonus are we giving the fans other than just the game of cricket? So that's something that we can really look at as well.
I absolutely agree with that. You need to make every test like a carnival, bring people out there, make sure they have fun, and they go back. Kids go back with memories, wanting to come and watch the same thing again. I think that is the most important thing.
I think just with that, with the Big Bash, especially with the Perth Scorchers, we're always mingling with the crowd after the game. On a test level, that can be quite tough after being a full day in the field and then sort of dealing with the fans afterwards in that sort of manner. But I think, you've got the 12th, 13th, 14th man there. I think you can utilise those particular players to mingle with the crowd during the game, after the game as well, just to have that fan interaction. You can even utilise past players for that as well. Because we need that interaction. How good would it be if there was a section put off out the back of the stand in India or Australia or wherever, where you've got a group of people can pay to go in and just mingle with a couple of ex-past players. And it doesn't have to be a speaking gig. It's just like you and I talking right now. But out the particular stand in the back, there's little things like that can really take that fan engagement to a new level. Good question.
Thank you. I think to keep ex-players safe in India, you do need to use technology.
It's a bit. But if you have a little section where you actually cordon it off, where there's no more than 100 people going in there, but you also have a code of conduct as such when you go in there. If you really are strict on those rules and regulations when you're in there, I don't think you'll get that overreaction with the players as you do see when they walk down the street. So there's ways and measurements to be able to cope with that.
I'm sure. Look, just one more point around, I think that's a very good point that certain countries who are strong at Test cricket playing 5-day tests, continuing to play 5-day tests, but some of the other countries like have a plague division or something like that, then engaging in 4-day tests. Just the point about Ashes, though, the way England are going about Test cricket right now, you might even 4 days is way too much for Australia. You get the job done in like 3 days.
I like the way that England go about their match or the way that they play. But I just think over in India, with all that negative talk when things weren't going their way, all of a sudden the likes of Pope, even Bairstow for a certain period of time, went in their shell or were half-hearted out the way that they were going about it. Ollie Pope's shot the other day, sweeping off that length delivery from Ashwin, it wasn't there to sweep, but he was halfway between being aggressive and defensive. He was so unsure about which way to go, and I just think that's something that the coaching staff for England have to be really aware of. You're playing a different brand of game. You're getting negative media following from the English reporters. How is that affecting your players' mindset? Because I'm quite certain, looking from afar, that it is affecting a couple of the players. Even Duckett there at the back end of the series, charging Ashwin the way he did. He was trying to belt it rather than play a decent cricket shot. I don't mind you being aggressive, trying to hit it over the top, but when you're playing away from your body to a half volley, instead of getting in a good position and playing it where the percentage is in your favour, you're on a hiding to nothing. And I went through those stats out the start before you came on. The amount of times England got bowled in LBW compared to India just shows that they weren't playing good cricketing shots. You can be aggressive as you want, but you've got to get in a good position to be able to play those shots. You've got too much gap between bat and pad, or you're not using your bat. You're not getting in a position where you can actually hit the ball in that power position with the LBW. Yep. So that's where I think England are really going to struggle on the subcontinent. It'll be interesting to see how they go over here with the extra bounce in Australia playing that same brand of cricket. It's going to be an interesting series.
Good point. Yeah, no, absolutely. Looking forward to that. Just
Yeah.
whilst we are on India-England series and Bazball and all that, what is your take on some of the statements that have come out of English camp over the last few weeks where, say, Duckett comes out and says, oh, the way Jaiswal is playing, some credit should be given to England that we've shown the way to the world how to play Test cricket in an aggressive manner. Or when Jimmy Anderson says, hey, India weren't really sure how much target to set us. And so what is your take on that?
I think concentrate on your own backyard and not worry about other people's backyard. You're playing a different brand of cricket. Jaiswal's gone out and absolutely annihilated your bowling attack, and Jaiswal plays the way that Jaiswal plays. So you can turn that around and say, well, England have learnt their style of cricket from Sehwag. Or you could go there and say the England openers are playing the same way that Matthew Hayden and Justin Langer were playing. You're playing in your present scenario. You've got a style of cricket that you're going after. And Jaiswal's got in momentum where he's playing his natural game. And I think if you look at that particular series, the top three of both teams, whoever dominated in the top three won the series. And you've got to dominate against the new ball. You've got to be slightly more aggressive there. Otherwise, spin's going to get you a little later on. So if you can get those early runs against the new ball quickly against the fast bowlers, where conditions are probably best suited for you, you're going to put your team in a better position. So Jaiswal out the top of the order played exceptionally well. Now, how's Jaiswal going to play when he comes over here and plays Australia on Australian soil? He's going to have to change his game. He's going to be slightly different. Or if he's going to be that aggressive, he's going to have a new range of shots to his repertoire. He's going to be able to have to play the pull and hook shot a little differently than what he does over in India, because of the extra pace and bounce. Instead of trying to hit it hard, he might just use the pace of it. So that's one thing that I'm going to be interested in it. But you can't compare and say that you're leading the way, because you're not. Because there's been other players in the past that have done similar things. It's a bit like Australia can say, well, we're changing the game because we've got Head and Mitchell Marsh in the middle order that come in and really turn the game on its knees. Adam Gilchrist. Go back to Adam Gilchrist, keeper batsman, and just comes out and scores the quickest century of all time, I think it was, out the whacker.
Yep,
No
at
one
that time.
expected that, but he was aggressive as well. So,
Yeah.
you just concentrate on your own game and don't worry about what other people do. And the thing with Jaiswal, compared to the English batsman, he was actually playing good cricketing shots. There was only a couple of times there where he got a little bit confident and he tried to slog rather than slog. Or when I say slog, over hit the ball rather than keep that shape that he had when he was dominating. Yeah, no, I don't. You know, when you focus on the other team, you know that you're beaten. You know that you're beaten.
No, absolutely. No, that's a good
Yeah.
point. I mean, from an Indian perspective, I think England in patches played really well. I think they had Indian fans worried at certain points through the series. I'll be lying if I said that 4-1 scoreline sort of depicts that one team got totally annihilated. But I think there were moments there where England were on top and they could have really put a lot of pressure on India. I think they lost those moments, and a lot has been said and written about those moments. But where next for English cricket, in your opinion, from here? Like, they go back. You reckon they're going to change their ways a little bit, or they're going to change some of the people in the team with their spin? That I thought they did reasonably well, the two young spinners. But what next for them? So, what do you see English cricket team doing over the next 6 months?
Yeah, I think they've got to pick one of the spinners and just say, right, we're going to stick with you. Whether they go back to Jack Leach or not, that's yet to be decided. But I don't mind Hartley in a sense, because I think he can offer a bit with the bat as well. He's got a bit of Jadeja about him in when I say that that all round ability. So I'll stick with him. I just think they've got to sit down with their players, especially their batting lineup, and just go, right, we've had a bit of an indifferent series here. How do we go about it with the aggressive style that we're going to play? Did we? It's a bit like Steve Smith when I'm talking about batting here. Remember when Steve Smith got that double 100 over in England, then he had a poor Test match the next one. So you're sort of in flow, you get overconfident, then all of a sudden you're playing shots that aren't in your repertoire, or your footwork is not the same as what it should be when you started playing that attacking brand of cricket. So go back to Steve Smith. As he was getting closer to the 200 and he started playing expansive shots, his footwork was how can I put it? He was taking bigger steps across the crease, and I could just see that he was going to be in trouble the next Test match, because that back leg and front leg was moving outside off stump rather than where he is now, and his head was falling over as well. And I was worried that he was going to not have a good next Test match. It's a bit the same with England now. They're playing this aggressive brand of style. The only person who kept in a similar game routine or a batting routine for each ball was Crowley. The others seem to have a different ball routine. I'm taking Joe Root out of the equation here as well, because Joe Root's in a different class to everyone else. But Crawley seems to have identified how he's going to play the Bazball, and I think it's a good thing for him. When he was first starting and he was trying to be defensive, it wasn't his game. He's got to be more aggressive. Everyone can say that he hasn't turned those 70s into 100s, but he was your leading run scorer. You'd rather him scoring those 50s than scoring 20s and just batting it and not being positive and getting out for 20. You'd rather him be aggressive. Whereas Duckett lost his footwork. Bairstow, he wasn't aggressive enough to spin. He got caught on the crease way too often. There were patches there where he really dominated the spinners, but when the spinners gained control and they were on a good length, he had no answer for it. He was just playing from the crease. He couldn't get right back. He was a sitting duck in a way. Pope had no idea out the back end of the series. So for me, I think the batters have got to get in a framework where that mindset is positive the whole time through, and they're not getting affected by the interference from the talk outside. I think that's a big thing for England moving forward, is listening to what others are saying outside. And there's a lot of comments from outside where a lot of these players would respect those voices. They've got to forget that and back their own game, and believe in the coaches and the captain Stokes, who believes in them. If they can get back to that, then they'll turn things around again very quickly.
Yep. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
And of the just sticking to this England team, who is their best spinner now after this series?
I'm not 100% sure. I'm not really 100% sure, really. But I'd go with Hartley for the all round ability, and especially when you're in England, I'd be using him as a holder from one end, bowl as many overs as you possibly can, a bit like a Nathan Lyon. And then when it starts turning, that's where he comes into the game. I think he needs a little bit more experience, exposure. I think there's a lot of upside with him. Basher, I really enjoyed watching him bowl. I thought he was quite good over in India. I reckon you could take him as a second spinner to India next series. And I reckon on subcontinent, I think after this particular series, he'll be better off for it. So if they go to Sri Lanka next, or wherever they go in the subcontinent, they've got to take those two spinners and give them more exposure. Basher, he's bowled more overs in this Test series than he's ever done in first-class cricket. It's amazing, absolutely amazing what he's achieved.
Yeah.
But I'll still go with Hartley because of the dominance that he can provide in the lower order with the bat. He can offer you something down there. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, this was a question from my workplace.
Rightio, and they want to get stuck into me. Yeah.
No, not stuck into you, but just take a little dig at England. And the answer at my workplace that I would have gotten would have been Joe Root is the best spinner. So.
Yep. Well, they're probably right there too.
Well, if it is really spinning like Michael Clarke used to do, they get players like Joe Root get very difficult to handle.
Well, it is. If Joe Root was a left-handed spinner, I reckon he would have done more damage over there as well. And that's the frustrating thing. There was a period there where you'd take your frontline spinners over to India, and then Michael Clarke would come on. Yep, thank you. These left-arm form finders that won't turn over in Australia.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, because he undercuts them, they're turning over there in India, and that's why it's so important when you look at your team dynamic. When you're looking at spinners to go over to India from Australia, you're not looking so much with the over spinners like Nathan Lyon. You're looking for those undercutters, a bit like a Stephen O'Keefe was or a Michael Beer. Those particular bowlers really do well in Indian conditions, especially in the days 3, 4, and 5, because that undercut either grips in the surface, turns massively, or skids straight on. And that's something that Jadeja does so well over there. So it's a bit of a horses for courses scenario.
Yeah.
So Joe Root, they're cheeky workplace, aren't they?
Very. And just last question on India England. So the new Indian entrants, is it too early to judge them?
Sorry, who's that?
The new players that India introduced in this Test series, the likes of Jurel, Yashasvi at the top, and then Sarfaraz. Obviously, Patidar didn't have a great few games, and then there was Padikkal, who came and scored a 50 in the last game. Do you think it is too early to sort of judge them?
I think it's look, they're fine players. There's no doubt about that. They're high class acts. I think when it comes to being able to play in different conditions around the world, it's way too early to judge. And let's say Jaiswal comes here and plays against Australia and doesn't have a good series. Even then, it's too early to judge because he's just been exposed to it for the first time. It's when you start judging a player with the level that they're at, it's the second time that they come over and play on those conditions. Have they adjusted? Have they found the answers for it? And that sets the chaff from the wheat. Now that you're in Australia, you'll understand that particular saying.
Yes.
So it's definitely way too early. I think Sarfraz Khan, I was worried about him against fast bowling in this particular series. Some of the pull shots he was playing at the back end against some sheer pace shows me that he's been working on his game. And I'd be very, very interested on seeing how he goes in this IPL against a few quick bowlers who are going to test him with the short stuff. But I think he is just about ready to be able to take on an Australian pace attack here in Australia with some of the pull shots that he's played. So, and it's good to see how these young players have worked on their game. You know, making a 50, making 100 and a double 100 in international cricket's no easy feat. There's no doubt about that. So that's why these are high quality players. But it's about how you, and that's why Sachin Tendulkar, your favourite player, who you grew up, that's why he's the king of India. And that's why Virat Kohli is so good as well, is because the way that they play and have adapted to the different conditions around the world, that sorts the geniuses from the best.
Yep, absolutely. All right, moving on to Australia, New Zealand. Before I ask you about Australia, New Zealand, just a question. What do you enjoy more, Australia beating England or Australia beating New Zealand?
Oh, Australia beating England by a country mile. Yeah, I've got a soft spot for New Zealand. I love Australia winning, but I also like the underdog. If New Zealand beat Australia in this particular Test match, I would have really enjoyed it in a sense that they haven't beaten Australia for 30 odd years or 30 odd Test matches. So it's good for New Zealand cricket. You know, it's one of those things. What's best for cricket today? And the best thing for today would have been New Zealand beating Australia as such. But there's another good thing that's happened today. Alex Carey, who is one of the loveliest cricketers going around, loveliest blokes going around, rejuvenated his career, saved his career with a brilliant 98. So the underdog stood up. So I'm happy with that particular scenario. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's a good question. I don't know why you'd think that it would be that. I don't know whether I'd know an Australian who would love Australia to beat New Zealand rather than Australia beat England, unless you're talking about rugby union.
Yeah, look, I think not in cricket, yes. But just from rugby, like just that rivalry. I think it'll be good if that sort of spills over into cricket as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's why.
Yeah, go.
And that's why I think these 2 Test series, they don't do justice. Like this should be at least a 3 Test series. 2 Test series is too short.
Definitely. But I think they're also rushing to get players back for the IPL as well. I think that makes a bit of a difference. But when you play New Zealand are one of the toughest opponents going around. They just fight, scrap. They never give in. And they challenge you. They challenge you. And it's always tough competition against New Zealand. And I love the way they go about it. They just... they're fantastic people. It's good to see a lot of them playing in the IPL as well, and helping them out with them financially, because they don't get paid what they should be at international level.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, just on that game and today's game, do you think New Zealand do have somewhere a mental block? Like they were in a pretty good position last night at the end of the day. And to come out this morning in the way Marsh batted to begin with, and Carey comes and then he's just caressing boundaries. Where did they miss the trick?
Well, dropping an easy catch off Marsh early on in that first couple of overs. But then, it's a funny one because the next ball, Travis Head got caught out point.
That's right.
But if Marsh didn't get dropped, would have Travis Head
scored the same amount
got
of
out
runs
to that particular shot? He wouldn't have, because he wouldn't have been able to face the next ball. Yeah, but in that particular scenario, you could have had two left-handers out the crease rather than a left-hand, right-hand combination, as it was with Kerry and Marsh for the next hour and a half. I don't. I think it's the crucial catches that New Zealand dropped. I think there was one the day before with Labuschagne that cost. Labuschagne lasted only two more balls, but those type of catches you've got to take, because it just drops. And New Zealand are a team that always lift their heads up, but just that drop catch, it's only 1 or 2% in the back of your mind that has that negative thought that really drains everyone for the next hour. And that's where Australia, with Mitch Marsh out in the middle, with his aggression and the way that he's playing at the moment, would have played on the back of the New Zealanders' minds. And I think they probably would have been in a mindset, we hope we get Mitch Marsh out, but Kerry out the other end, he's out of form. We should be able to get him out cheaply. If we get him out cheaply, well, we're home and hosed with the tail. If you're thinking like that, you're also on the back foot as well. You've got to be on the money. You've got to be trying to get Mitch Marsh out as quickly as possible. And if you're thinking like that, you give yourself a better chance. So I think it's their mindset could have been a little bit negative after that drop catch of Mitchell Marsh today, which made New Zealand fall away at the back end. But gee, it was a good test match.
Yeah,
3 wickets.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 3 wickets is a close test. Right? Yeah, but it's a good fight back as well, with Australia getting that lead that they had on that particular wicket. It was just a fantastic test match.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what a story Mitch Marsh has been over the last 12 odd months, and his speech at the Ellen Water Medal, absolutely phenomenal. What he's been doing for Australia lately.
Well, exactly right. It's interesting because you look at his first class record and you think, oh, gee, should he be in there as such? But he's in there because he's got the ability. There's no doubt he's got that ability, and he's showing it. And he's repaying Australian cricket with that faith. But the other thing is what he brings to the team off the field and also on the field when there's pressure situations. He's calm. He's the glue of the team. He's the funny one. He brings everyone together. So sometimes that's more important than averaging 35 out in the middle or averaging 50 out in the middle. I'd rather have someone like a Mitch Marsh that brings the team together averaging 35 than averaging 50 and not bringing anything else to the table apart from his batting skills. Because at the end of the day, you're together with each other for nearly a whole year. You're traveling. He's playing in all formats. And you need those fun guys. And, we're talking about Andrew Simons earlier. Andrew Simons was one of those particular players. He was the gel of the team. Just his mannerisms. He can make you laugh, but he can also make you think, oh, gee, have I done something wrong? And he could do that with everyone. He just had that mannerism about him. He was absolutely brilliant. You need those sort of characters.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And just the last one on say the Australian Test team, or a couple more, if you don't mind. Nathan Lyon. So when he finally retires in about 15 years' time, who's the next in line you see?
Well, it's pretty hard if he lasts another 5 years. It's pretty hard to say who's going to take his mantle. But at the moment, I quite like Swepson from Queensland, leg spinner. I've always had big raps for him. I think he's got a lot to offer, and especially around the bowlers such as what Australia's got right now. Cummins, Hazelwood, Stark, as well as Green and Mitchell Marsh bowling their medium paces. I think someone like a Swepson could really be a major wicket taker in that particular team. So he'd be a more aggressive spinner than what Nathan Lyon is. it will add a different dynamic to the way that Australia approaches the game in the bowling department. But I just think he's got the skill to be able to take over from line. He'll be a little bit more expensive, but I think he would have a better strike rate with the ball. Just from the nature of leg spin bowling compared to off spin bowling.
Sure. Yeah. And what are your thoughts on Todd Murphy? Would you say him going forward?
Todd Murphy, he's a bit like what we're discussing with the Indian players. He's come on, he's done reasonably well at Test level. He's got the goods. I prefer the leg spinner than the off spinner. That's probably my bias if I was selecting the team. So Todd would be behind Swepson for me. He's got a lot to offer Australian cricket moving forward. But I don't think it's just going to be a move in for him. I've got to see a lot more of Todd Murphy as well. I'd like to see how he actually really does bowl in Australian conditions under pressure. Can he continue that line and length on these flatter wickets? Can he get that bounce that Nathan Lyon does against good quality batsmen? And I'd love to see him operating against India in Australian conditions to really give me a good outlook of where Todd Murphy's out. Quality bowler, there's no doubt about it, but I still think Swepson's in front of him. And I'm being harsh on Todd Murphy because he's done well for Australia at this stage, but that's the way I see it. Good question, that one. Yeah. Bloody tough one, that one. Yeah.
And the last one, is Labuschagne out of the woods, you reckon? Or was he ever in the woods in your book?
I don't think Labuschagne was in the woods in my book. I think you're coming to the end of a test series now. You've got the IPL, you've got a T20 World Cup, I think, at the end of the IPL. So there's plenty of time for him to go and work on his game. And I think it would have been a good break for him. I think he's got to revisit who he actually is, or what makes him tick. I just think he's overthinking it at the present moment. He is a thinker of the game. There's no doubt about it. But I think he's overthinking it. And this is going to be one of the bigger challenges of Labuschagne's career. How does he come back? The break from Test cricket right now is coming out at an ideal time for him. I think he's going to come back better, and he's going to make some big scores when Australia play Test cricket again. And all right, I reckon he'll make 100 in the World Test Championship final when that comes around at the end of this rotation. So cool. this World Cup, World Test Championship final, he'll make 100.
Oh, good. That's a bold statement. I mean, considering that that's a fair bit away, and highly likely India and Australia are going to be playing against each other. Given that our beloved Bazballers are probably at number 7 or 8 in the table, so I don't see them climbing that far to topple any of the top 2 right now. Cool.
Right, I'll just before you ask the next questions, I better just okay. Are there any questions out there that have come through that we better just answer for the next 5 minutes? Well, God, Ashish, Arin Kanav. Do you know Arin?
He's my nephew. He's a cheeky little boy.
How you going, Arin? Is that how you say it, Arin?
Aryan.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Aryan. Aryan, thanks very much for joining us. Okay. Oreo Krishna Silvery. With Gujarat Titans reaching the finals twice under Hardik Pandya leadership, but still trading him away, what are your thoughts on their strategy for IPL 2024? For me, I don't think Hardik Pandya is going to be a huge loss, really. Yes, he's that all-rounder in the middle order, but I still think you can cover it. I think they've got good bowling depth there, and they don't really rely too heavily on him in that bowling department. I just felt he was batting up in the top order last year. I don't think that's his spot. So for me, I think Gujarat Titans might be better off without him there. In this year's IPL, and Mumbai Indians are going to be better off having the Indian all-rounder batting in the lower order, and I think he's going to be playing in a position out Mumbai which is best suited to him than what he was doing at Gujarat Titans. So I think we're going to see Hardik Pandya at his best again with Mumbai Indians. What do you think there, mate?
Oh, look, I totally agree with you. I don't think Hardik Pandya is as big a loss as, say, someone like Mohammad Shami. I think he's a bigger loss for Gujarat than Pandya is at this stage. And I don't think they've really had too much of a choice because Pandya really wanted to go back to Mumbai. So, it's not like they traded him away because they wanted him to go. It's like they had to, pretty much because the player wanted so. But I agree with you. I think Pandya's loss can be covered. But to cover Shami's loss with the squad that they have right now is probably going to be a bit tricky.
Yep, totally agree with you. Is there any other questions there, AK? Envy, on average, how much does a cricket player get paid in test matches? I reckon they're around about $25,000 Australian at this present stage. So that's about 20,000 US, I think. That's for an Australian Test cricketer. For an Indian Test cricketer, are they on the 80,000 that you said now in India? Or
I'm pretty sure that's the incentive that just came out a few days ago. They announced it for Test cricketers just to make it more lucrative.
Yeah. I think if you look at Afghanistan players get the same for a Test match as a T20 game. I've heard on the grapevine, and that's not on. So it's different for different teams. England players would get paid the same, if not a little bit more than Australia, because they get paid in pounds. Sri Lanka and West Indies definitely get paid a lot less than what Australia do. I think those two teams would be lucky to get $10,000 US per Test match. Pakistan, I think they're in the same boat. They don't get paid nearly as much as their counterparts here in India, Australia, and England. So, but it's not all about the money as such, because you play the game because you want to play for your country first, and then when you get to a certain age, all of a sudden all right, I'm playing and I can make a living from it, and that's where you get into that dangerous territory. Why are you playing the game? You sort of some players get lost in, right, I'm playing for the money rather than playing for the love of the game, and that's where any sport can get dangerous if you get to the higher level. So good question there, Amvi. Any other questions there, AK, that we can answer? Gushan Singh Sangha, why isn't Cameron Bancroft in the squad despite doing so good in the domestic formats and BBL? Is there a political setup in the team that backs this disinclusion? All right, West Australia, where are we today? What do you think of this one, Ashnish?
I think it is beyond ridiculous that Cam Bancroft is not in the squad right now. I'm not going to mince words on this. I think, and I'll tell you what, a general Australian, a common Australian, feels very similar, and that's the feedback I get from my workplace, from talking to my friends, in Sydney and all that. What else does the guy need to do? It's insane that he's not in the squad. Yeah, that's where I stand on this.
I think he's made 16 today against Victoria. I think the only thing that he needs to do is watch his comments in the media, because he's sort of upset the fast bowlers there. So that's probably one thing with Cameron Bancroft. Now, I played with him in club cricket here when he was coming through. He's probably the second best keeper that I've actually bowled to in Australia. Yep, I think there was only one. I think he's only misgloved one of mine over a 10-year period, and that was a flipper that went down leg side, and mind you, it didn't bounce, so he had no chance of gloving it. But he was brilliant behind the stumps. Yeah, he's very versatile. It's upsetting in one way. But in another way, there's a lot of stories out there where people have been hard done by. Cameron Bancroft is definitely one of those being hard done by, which takes me to Steve Smith. Been watching him over in this New Zealand series, opening the batting. That movement across that he has, where he's set up in front of off stump, he's been out LBW a couple of times, where he's moved across, if I can do this here, He's moved across, but his feet are there. I'll put my there we go. I've got the camera there. But then his head's over here. So his head's falling over, and that's causing him not to keep the line of the ball, and that's why he's getting out LBW hit on off stump. When he's going strong, his head is above the foot line on off stump, and those balls that are tacked on the stumps, because he's more upright, the eyes are level with the ball, he's able to stay in control and work it on the leg side. That's where he's falling apart right now, Steve Smith. And if he keeps that up, he'll be the one missing out in the next Test match, and Cam Bancroft might come in. There we go, Ashish. Ashish. Any other questions there, okay, before Ashish asks another couple of questions before we go? Could Dhoni's new role message for IPL 2024 suggest a shift to behind-the-scenes position, like a mentor coach, while maintaining a limited on-field role for CSK? I spoke to an assistant coach the other day that I played a lot of Test cricket with and one-day cricket, and a lot of cricket here in West Australia, and he's on the bench there. MS Dhoni will be bowling this year instead of keeping. No, he won't. No, he won't.
You had me there.
I know that you're a CSK fan, Ashish, and I try to have you on the spot there. No, I think this could be his last year in IPL cricket. Do they go to a major auction next year, or is there another 2 auctions, another 2 years?
I think it is the major auction next one.
Yeah, so if it's a major auction next year, I think this will be the last year that MS Dhoni plays in the IPL. So I think he'll be going into that mentor role, and he'll be with CSK for a long period of time. Now, any more questions, Ashish, before we go? Oh, here we go. England has a really great backup talent in counties. Dom Sibley is doing good. Danny Worrell's Australian. I don't know whether he qualifies for England at this stage. He might do. He never played for Australia. He should do. Has had decent runs. The main thing is they always try something fancy rather than textbook cricket. Yeah, look, they've got great backup there, but Dom Sibley's an opening batter. I still think they can stick with Duckett for another series. He did well early on in this particular series, but I just think he got a bit ahead of himself in that last series. I think he'll be great. I think Danny Worrell is a great bowler, good bowler, but I think England have got plenty of other options in front of Danny Worrell so far. But if Anderson retires sooner than later, Worrell could just about fit the bill to do what Anderson does with that new ball, especially in England conditions. He's more of a swing bowler than a pace bowler, and that's something that you can look at. Gushan, that's a very good summation. Well done on that. Now, Ashish, any questions before we go?
I had a couple, but if
go for it.
Time, yep. So let's move around your cricketing life, Brad. And I know you've said many times in past interviews or past videos that you don't really like talking about your cricketing career as such, but something that I'm really interested in, I mean, you've shown a lot in one-day cricket, playing for Australia, early 2000s to like 2007 to 2008. You obviously performed really well in 2007 World Cup, but you did a great job in 2003 World Cup as well, considering what happened just before the World Cup. So Warney was about to play, and he comes back home for whatever reasons, and all of a sudden you pretty much find yourself as the main spinner in the team. What went through your mind? Like, was there a mentality shift, paradigm shift that you went through? Because all of that happened very close to the start of the World Cup as well. So can you talk us through your thoughts and what was the discussion like within the team environment at the time?
Look, it wasn't the best moment in that particular tour. I think most of the team were gutted because you got the number one spin bowler in the world having to go home. But I was excited because it was an opportunity for me, and I thought this was the opportunity that I was never going to get. So that excitement got me through the first first phase of that particular tour. But the way I went about it was thinking, right, Shane Warne's not here. I've taken his space. So I'm actually the weak link in this team. So my job is basically just do what I do best, but I'm going to take on the best batsman of the opposition team. If I can control him, if I can dominate him, then hopefully it makes my job against the other batsmen a little easier, because I think, oh, right, no, there's no Warne. We can attack. We can attack this George Bradley Hogg. And I knew that would have been their mindset. So I had to get out of the starting blocks and really dominate that their main batsman from day one. And then all of a sudden, the mindset on the opposition batsmen that are coming in next are going to go, oh, gee, it's not going to be as easy as we thought. That's the way that I approached it. And I just try to keep things as simple as I possibly could. I knew I wasn't going to be a Shane Warne, but the thing that I really wanted to pride myself on was being the most economical bowler in the team or in the tournament. And if I was the most economical bowler with the bowling attack that we had, all of a sudden they'll have to take risk against me, and that's where I was going to pick up my wickets. If they couldn't get me, they had to take on the other bowler at the other end, and he would pick up wickets. So that was the mindset that I went in. I didn't think that I had to be a Shane Warne or anything like that. I just had to be me at my best. And I think that's and the only reason why I don't mind answering that question is because hopefully it's a bit of a lesson to other people out there that are put in a situation. You know, you might be at work, you're put in a new role that you weren't expecting, but it's a management role. But you've got to have that belief that you can do it. What are my strengths? How do I do this? Just being the authentic me to help everyone else around it. That's the only way you can do it. If you try and be someone else and not be authentic, you're going to have a tougher time about it. So that's the way I went about it, trying not to be the Shane Warne.
Yep. No, thanks, Hoggy, for answering that one. I think that performance stands out. That tournament, the performance in that tournament of the Australian team really stands out.
We're very lucky there.
Yep. Sorry, go on.
No, thanks for that question. No, we're very lucky there. I was just just as about to answer the question, it was just something went through my mind of how lucky, I feel being part of that particular team. It was just a team of great cricketers, but also great people. We were very lucky. I think the best thing about that particular tournament was the security. Detail didn't want to be on our detail; they wanted to be with other teams. And at the end of it, one of the security guys said, "This has been a fantastic 2 months of our lives. We're so glad." And every other security detail is a bit jealous of not being on tour with you guys, because we try to include them in everything, and we felt that they were part of the team, and that's what makes a successful team, is including everyone who's involved in that particular tour. Make them inclusive in it as much as you possibly can, and that's why that tour was so good.
Yeah, no, great team, absolutely. And just moving to your Test cricket, you took 17 wickets in Test cricket in your career. 5 of them are the same batsman, which
that's
is
Ganguly, isn't it?
Ganguly, exactly right. Mate, that's like 30% of your Test dismissals is sort of Ganguly. Who?
He wasn't that good a batsman.
Right.
I remember being on a plane in India, and I got a piece of paper from the hostess. He was up the front, I was up the back, and I wrote something on there along the lines of, I can't believe that you're sitting out the front when you're my biggest bunny. something like you should be sitting out the back, I should be sitting in the front because you're the biggest bunny I've ever had. It was the first Test wicket I ever took. But yeah, no, he was a good player. The thing I like about Sourav Ganguly is I think he was probably the first Indian that really challenged Australia with their own culture. So what I mean by that, challenged our culture with the way that he went about it. Not tossing the coin with a coat on or being late for a Test toss, just trying to hit the buttons of Steve Waugh at the time, who was, regarded as one of those who really liked tradition. So Ganguly was really trying to challenge him there, which I thought was a smart move in that aspect of it. And that's just playing little tactics against the opposition. So he really did his homework there about what beliefs a certain player had, and he was going to challenge those beliefs. Whether it was the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, you're in the world of sport, and that was a little tactic that I thought was genius from Sourav Ganguly.
Yep. Now look, as an Indian growing up in that period of time, Ganguly, like for me, he is my all-time Indian 11 captain. Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
Even though I go for CSK and Dhoni and I love Dhoni and whatnot, but Test cricket, Sourav Ganguly captains the Test side for me. Period. What he achieved was phenomenal, and he was, as a batter, he was particularly good against spinners, particularly left arm spin, and that's why this stat just stands out for me. That you got him 7 innings, you bowled at him, and 5 times you've got him, which is incredible.
Well, yeah, no, it's. Oh, look, I'm pretty lucky. I think he got me a couple of times as well, but look, at the end of the day, I'm very lucky. And someone asked me the question the other day, if I could go back and play one Test match, what would it be? And that would be the 1996 Test match. At the age of 35, probably at the age of 42, around about that time. That's when I probably thought I'd probably bowl on my best. But I would have loved to have gone back there, played out Delhi, but have Virender Sehwag batting against me and Sourav Ganguly as well as Tendulkar. But Sehwag was the one that was an absolute menace. Just be able to have that moment where I probably had a better mindset against him. That would be the challenge that I'd love to go back to Delhi and play a Test match against Sehwag. He was just unbelievable.
It's funny you name Sehwag because you're not the only one. I was just watching Inzamam ul Haq, the absolute great batsman from Pakistan. He was the captain of Pakistan, and Sehwag's batting against them in Test cricket. In the first session, Inzi had 5 fielders on the boundary, and he's like, I'm standing there and I'm wondering, am I even the right person to captain this Pakistani side?
You can't. I remember my first commentary gig I did was India versus Sri Lanka. And I'll be honest with you, I got rang up, do you want to come over and commentate? And I said, does it come back to Australia, the feed? And they said, no. I said, all right, I'll come and do it. But I remember after the first day of the Test match, I think Sehwag made 300. But Trevor Bayliss was the Sri Lankan coach. And I got asked to interview Trevor Bayliss. Now, I've never done media on that side of the camera before where you've got to interview people. And the producer, he's with the BCCI now. He's on my earpiece. He goes, right, don't introduce Trevor Bayliss, just ask the first question. And that was about 15 seconds before I've got to ask Trevor Bayliss the first question. Now, I'm nervous already. And I'm going, right, don't introduce him. This does not sound right. And so I introduced Trevor Bayliss and I asked him a question, do you think you made the right decision that you've only played one quick and a number of spinners or something like that, or the other way around? I can't remember what it was. And Trevor Bayliss has answered the question. And I've just gone, oh, that's great, mate, in Australian. And I forgot I was on TV. But Sehwag's innings he just annihilated the Sri Lankan bowlers. I think he made 230 in the day. I can't remember. I've got to go back to that test match.
Yep.
But
I think he's got a double hundred in the day. Yep.
yeah. It was just unbelievable. I played him in a test match here in Adelaide, and I went up to Gilly after a couple of overs. I said, Gilly, this is probably the best couple of overs I've bowled, and he is just playing me like someone's feeding a ball machine. So I can't do anything else. He goes, mate, well, I've got nothing for you. You're on your own here. Just think about
Again,
it. Yeah.
Ashwin says something about Sehwag here. He goes, when Ashwin was just starting out, like in the early 20, I say about 2012 or something like that, 2010, 2011, he happened to bowl to Sehwag in nets, and Sehwag was just taking him to cleaners, right? And Ashwin goes, he goes, look, I was really starting to doubt myself and my ability. Am I even good enough to play at this level? Like, you know, your IPLs, international cricket and all that. And then he goes to Sehwag, he goes, man, look, I can't believe you were playing me like that. He said, oh, look, don't feel bad. I don't consider spinners as bowlers. So, okay, that was him.
That's awesome. I reckon we finish on that note. That was a lovely note to finish on.
That's a good note to finish on. Thanks, Brad.
Yeah,
thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate that.
No, thanks very much, Ashwin, and thanks for your love of cricket. And I'm glad that you're making it over here in Australia, and the transition was fantastic. It's just a good story, and I'm glad that you shared that story at the start, because there's a lot of Indian people that do come over here and study, and yeah, if they get into the society here, get to a sporting ground and play a bit of cricket, get to know the people here, they can really have a good, fruitful life here. So thanks very much for sharing that with us at the start. And thanks for coming on. There were some great questions there. So really enjoyed the chat, mate. Thanks, Ashnish. And you have a good time.
Yep.
Rightio. And thanks, everyone that's joined us today on HOGGOUT. It's been fantastic, and I'm really enjoying the content with all the fans there. It's been fantastic discussions, and Ashnish was just brilliant again today. So thanks very much for having me. Have a great week, and the IPL's just around the corner. Can't wait for that.